It isn't, ironically, that the title of this presentation is about the accidental project manager. And there's a series of books out in the market, actually, that actually cater to this whole idea, which is that the vast majority of people, I think, that are in the profession of managing projects probably got into it by accident. I believe that, at least in the certification classes I teach for various colleges, that I am seeing a more deliberate entry into this particular profession. But at least for, I think for myself, who got into it in the early 2000s, and for other people around that time or before that, it was probably mostly a accidental kind of thing that you fell into. And typically, like these two books that I found on the market that talk specifically about it, you can see here it's a project software project manager, and the other one talks about surviving the transition from techie to manager. So my feeling is probably like the vast majority of you, you came from a technical background, you showed some leadership and ability to coordinate, collaborate amongst your team, and probably from there you moved on to the project manager. What I'll talk about is, the subtitle of this particular topic was, how it actually became a perfect fit, and actually, there was this kind of unorthodox path that was taken, especially by me. And currently, I'm doing a series of things, which is just as mentioned in the introduction, I teach at various. I teach when I get called to. I consult for various companies. So really, I guess you could say I really put skin in the game, and I really take my work as projects rather than being within a company as a formal project manager, which actually I did for about the last 6 or 7 years. So in some sense, I came around full circle, and the reason why I say that is I started off as a philosophy major. I had no idea what I was going to do. It's probably a long story that could probably take another webinar to discuss. I ended up owning retail businesses. One of the first retail businesses I owned was back in the late 90s, which was an Arco ATM, which is audience out in the West Coast side of America. You probably ran into one of these stations, especially if you're in the California area. A mail-in shipping center. I even co-owned a yogurt store, and then I wrote and sold software on the side. Now, I really want to mention this because, unlike probably a lot of you or other people that are project managers, you probably started off after college working in the corporate field, working your way in some kind of technical specialty. Either I'm presuming this particular audience that this webinar probably is in the IT field. So you kind of worked your way up and became a project manager. And you probably have the vast majority of your experience working in medium to large companies. So for me, I came the opposite way, which is normally people, they work in a corporate world, they probably get a little tired of it, and then they go out and do their own business. So I went the other way, which was I ran businesses, and I went back to the corporate world. And it's a very interesting experience. So as a small business owner, you oftentimes don't have the luxury to just focus on a specific technical specialty or be within a certain functional area. You kind of have to be a jack of all trades and master of many in a lot of cases. And my feeling was that because of that particular background, that if I went back into the corporate world, that kind of experience and that kind of background would suit me well. So initially, I went back in as a software developer, and by the time I went into that, I was in my late 30s, and sitting in a cubicle with my head down writing code 8 to 10 hours a day, I realized didn't really match my particular my personality. So out of all the kind of fields that I looked at that you could do in a corporate environment, what I found interesting enough that was the closest you could get to being kind of a small business owner or entrepreneur was a project manager. Because when you think about it, you are the one that has to lead this, as the PMBOK says, a product, service, or result that has a definitive start-end date. You're usually given some money or budget that you have to work with. You have to corral a team together, and you have to execute this thing in a straight line direction and get that thing completed within, on time, under budget. So that kind of mindset or that kind of skill that's required to do that kind of work well is actually very suited to the kind of skills that you would need, for example, if you were to run a small business. So that's how I ended up in the field, and I found that it was a very close alignment. But I would be kind of remiss if I said that everything just came out great, because interesting enough, because I came from the background of being an entrepreneur, small business owner, what I found was that, and especially as all of you know, within the past, I don't know, since the downturn in 2008, kind of the work or the kind of work environment that we had, house of cards, and that house of cards has kind of fell apart within the last 6 or 7 years. So what I'm going to argue for is that despite the fact that, although it seems like it's picked up a bit, although there's some economic indications that it might actually be beyond repair, your skills, if you're good at managing projects, are definitely the skills that are going to get you through this and allow you to prosper in the future. The thing I'd like to talk about is, I usually love to use this metaphor about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've given this presentation at various local chapters, and I love this particular metaphor. And so that we don't end on a bad note, I'm going to go the reverse and go from the ugly, the bad, to the good, because I want to end this on a good note. What do I mean by the ugly? Well, what I mean by the ugly is that, well, there's certain things that I think we all experience, and it's something I've definitely perceived for myself, is there's just really nothing we can do about it. And one of the things that I've noticed, and especially if you look at this particular slide, this is from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and it's, I'm presuming it's real data. It's not made-up data. It's by a government agency. And it's something I've actually noticed, and the colleagues that I work with have noticed as well. You notice here on the left-hand side, corporate profits seem like they went down around the mid-'80s. I'm presuming that probably occurred after that the 87 stock market downturn. But if you notice, it's gone pretty much up. There's been some volatility, but the profits that organized or companies that are making have been pretty much going on the upswing. And if you notice recently, despite the economic downturn and high unemployment, you are still noticing that companies are still making pretty good profits. Conversely, if you look at the slide on the right, it seems like personal income has gone down, and it's continually gone down. I mean, it's gone up a little bit, but it's continually gone down. So that's not really, that's kind of bad. That's pretty ugly, if you ask me. So this other article that I ran into in The Economist talks about how the American labor market actually might be permanently stunted. If you factor in people, for example, that have stopped looking for work, if you factor in the unemployed, looks like and then you consider the fact that companies are able to keep making higher profits despite the fact that unemployment is high, and you look at the fact that we haven't even, there hasn't even been any inflationary effects, and that's been sustained. That kind of movement has been sustained for about the last 6 or 7 years.